Okay, so lecture 2.1, Introduction to Linear Graphs. Now, we are in chapter 2 now. This is the first lecture from chapter 2. So it's worth taking a moment and thinking about what the name of the chapter is. It's the Linear Graph Models chapter. So, the rough idea here is that we're going to do this lumped parameter modeling, right? We're going to use these lumped parameter models to model dynamic systems, right? So electronic systems, translational mechanical systems, and rotational systems are the three domains that we've discussed. And we've talked about the types of elements that can be in each of them, the types of lumped parameter elements that can be in each of them. So masses and rotational moments of inertia and capacitors and springs and dampers and resistors and inductors, right? All of these things, and the sources. So what we're going to do now is, now that we've sort of united them into different categories of elements, so we have the A-type energy storage elements, which store energy in their cross variable. We had the T-type energy storage elements that store energy in their through variable. And then we had D-type dissipative elements, right, that convert energy from inside the system into heat, dissipated into heat. And then we also had sources as well. So these were the sort of categories, and we're now going to, so now we've unified these sorts of ideas from the different energy domains. We're going to come up with a graphical way of drawing diagrams to express how the system is composed and interconnected. Okay, and that's what this chapter is about, linear graph models. So you can think of it as being kind of like a circuit diagram, but for circuits and beyond. Okay, including mechanical systems. So we can draw a sort of equivalent circuit for mechanical systems. And in fact, it should be noted that a lot of times, if you go into the literature and you look at a research article that's written about modeling some dynamic system that's mechanical, a lot of times you're going to see a so-called equivalent circuit model. Okay, so in this way of understanding things, people will actually just say, oh, you know how masses are like capacitors, and you know how springs are like inductors, and you know how dampers are like resistors? They just draw an electronic circuit that's like the analog of the mechanical system. So that's a whole thing that people do. We're going to do effectively the same thing, but we're going to use, instead of circuits to describe everything, we're going to use linear graphs to describe circuits and everything. Okay, so they're going to be very similar to circuits, but there are some differences. Okay, so engineers often use graphical techniques to aid in analysis and design. We will use linear graphs to represent the topology or structure of a system modeled as interconnected lumped elements. This represents to us the essential structure of the system in a minimalist form. In this way, it is like Massimo Vignelli's famous 1972 New York subway system map, which inspired widespread adoption of his style. So here is a sort of modern version of that map. And some of the key aspects of this are that there are no right turns in the subway system, turns out. And there are, these stops are not in these straight lines necessarily either, okay? They have, their actual topology is a little bit different. But if you want to go from, say, Pelham Parkway over here, and you want to get to Fordham Road over here, it's pretty easy to figure out which subways you need to get on, which lines you need to get on to get there. And so what this is doing is it's distilling the information down. It doesn't really matter if the actual track does this, right? What matters is that you know that the Fordham Road stop is on this line north of the 170th Street. So that's the idea, is that it gives you just enough information without giving you too much information. And these became very, very useful because otherwise it looks like a spaghetti bowl. And you can't find your way through anything unless you're very experienced with it. So this way of thinking about graphical representations is a kind of a modern idea, right? Prior to modernity, it was realism was what we tried to do in representations. We tried to make it as realistic as possible. So it would have been considered to be best if this had the exact locations of these stops on the representation. And for some applications, that is necessary. But for the application here, which is giving people a way to get from point A to point B, something like this is actually superior. That's what we're going to do with our linear graph models too. We're going to distill it down, and we're going to say, okay, yes, you could draw a complex 3D model of this situation. Yes, you could simulate this at a very detailed level, but we're going to look at it at the level that we are interested in. And how do you get from point A to point B? How do you make the system behave the way you want is the way where we're going to go eventually. How do you design systems to behave the way you want? For now, we just want to understand them. And once we can understand them, then we can design them. So that's kind of the idea here, trying to depict. So besides minimalism, the key idea in Vignelli's subway maps is that the details of the tunnel's path are irrelevant and, in fact, distracting to the person attempting to get from one station to another. In a similar way, a linear graph represents the system in a minimalist style with only two types of objects. Okay? A set of branches, each of which represents an energy port associated with a system element. Each branch is drawn as an oriented line segment. So it's just a line with an arrow on it. So we can just draw lines with arrows on them, and they'll represent different elements. So for instance, one could be a capacitor element. Another one might be a spring element. Okay? So the line actually represents an element here. And then the second object that we'll use is a node. So a set of nodes, each of which represents a point of interconnection among system elements. Each node is drawn as a dot. And like my dot's kind of fancy with like a circle and stuff. It doesn't have to be. It can be a circle or it can just be a dot. Usually it's something that you can kind of see though, some sort of substantial point that you can see. All branches begin and end at nodes. The nodes represent locations in the system where distinct across variable values may be measured. So that's a good check on yourself. So if you're saying, is there a node here? Think to yourself, if it's an electronic system, could I measure a voltage there? Does that make sense to? Or is there a distinct velocity for this point? Yeah?
So I'm looking at figure 2.3, and I don't know if you moved it in that version. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's reversed in my copy.
Oh yeah, I did a little bit of, it's just aesthetic edits essentially.
So for the source, I'm noticing that the arrow is pointing the other way.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't worry. We'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you've noticed a subtlety that we will be discussing. Great. So, good. So putting branches together with nodes, we have figure 2.2. So we have a branch, and every branch begins and ends at a node. And then we also sometimes draw a reference node as being this sort of ground-looking hatch. Okay, so that would be the reference node. So typically a graph, if you have a reference node, typically you're going to connect that graph up at one of the nodes is going to be the reference node, right? So here's a branch that's not connected to the reference node. And it's going to have a through variable associated with it. And because every element, as we know in our models, has a through variable and a cross variable, right? So we're going to have, for a mechanical system, the through variable will be force, and the across variable will be velocity. For an electronic system, the through variable will be current, and the across variable will be voltage. So like when we considered a resistor, we knew there was a current associated with the resistor flowing through it, and we knew there was a voltage across the resistor as well. Okay. And we're using these generalized through and across variables here because we're saying could be a voltage, could be a velocity, could be an angular velocity, etc. So it is important to note that linear graphs can represent nonlinear elements as well. The name is a reference to the lines. Okay, so sometimes linear graphs are the name sometimes makes people think, oh, I can only use these to model linear systems. But in fact, the linear part is just a reference to the fact that we're using lines and not the linearity or nonlinearity of the system itself. So one of these branches, one of these system elements might be some nonlinear element, and that's totally fine. Okay, great. It is common to choose a node of the graph as the reference node to which all across variables are referenced. Due to its similarity to the electronic ground, we'll often use these terms interchangeably, so ground and reference node. Figure 2.3, the one at the bottom of the page for me, but might not be for you guys, the one with the circuit and the linear graph on it, shows how a linear graph can be constructed for a simple RC circuit. Note that the wires become nodes. So remember how we would talk about how this is a node, and this is a node, and this is a node? And we could say, oh, anything connected by wire to it is a node, right? So this is all a node, this is all a node, right? What we're going to do is in this linear graph, we're going to collapse those to a point. And they'll still be called nodes. So this node, we say is node A. We represent all of that as a single dot. And similarly, B, we would represent with this single dot. And then, dang it, I can't use C, can I? Because I have C in there. I'm going to call it alpha. Is this dot, is this node. So this is the reference node, and it's associated with the ground of the circuit. So this is pretty trivial to draw a linear graph if you have a circuit diagram, right? Every element just becomes a branch. So the resistor got a branch, we just label it with R. Its parameter, we know that's a resistor. With a capacitor, we're going to say, okay, it connects between B and alpha, and so C is the element that connects them, and then Vs is the source, and we say it connects between A and alpha. We'll talk about the directions of those arrows in the next lecture, which is on sign convention, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, so sign convention is exactly the same as we had here in electronics, where we said, okay, we're going to assume the voltage drops this way. This will be a positive voltage drop and current flow for this element. And then we have to use the prescribed one for the sources. The sources we can't change. The other ones will be effectively arbitrary.
But then why is it backwards for the source?
That's a nuance that you have to wait. It's essentially to do with the fact that power flows from the source into the circuit, okay? and we want that to be positive from the system's perspective. And so we have to flip the arrow. But we'll talk more about it in the next lecture, because that's exactly what sign convention comes down to. So the next lecture, we'll do sign convention for each of the domains. So we'll do one for electronics, one for mechanical systems, and one for mechanical translation, and one for mechanical rotational systems. Okay, so that is all I've got here. Did you guys see approximately how to construct a linear graph from like a circuit diagram from this? Like elements become branches, nodes become nodes, right? Of course, it gets more complicated than this, but this is the general idea. And then we'll do a bunch of examples as we proceed. Okay.